Now, elites in the African continent, which include political, religious, and community leaders, often claim that homosexual practices are an important Western evil. So many cases are triggering heated debates around gay rights on the African continent, where homosexuality has become a decisive issue. So why is Africa such a difficult place for the LGBTQ+ community? Scholars say there are many reasons, which include colonial laws and religious morality. But is that the only reason? This week we spotlight on this sensitive societal topic that has been making headlines recently.
In January this year, Edwin Chiloba, a 25-year-old Kenyan fashion designer and a model, was found dead by the side of a road outside the Rift Valley town of Eldoret in western Kenya. Immediately after Chiloba's death, rights activists demanded for speedy investigations. The activists suspected that it was a hate-instigated attack on LGBTQ+ people. The death created a buzz the world over until the suspects were apprehended and taken to court. Chiloba was an LGBTQ+ rights activist, and his death has sparked a conversation that is considered taboo and highly sensitive. Fast forward to months later, a ruling by Kenya's Supreme Court allowing registration of LGBTQ associations was hailed as a step forward in gay rights. But homosexual relations are illegal in Kenya, and one lawmaker, after the court's verdict, began pushing a bill in Kenya's parliament to increase the maximum punishment for anyone found guilty to life in prison, in some cases even death. President William Ruto also voiced his concerns publicly.
Katika taifa letu la Kenya, tuko na mila.
I want to tell you all that in Kenya we have traditions, we have cultures, we respect our constitution, all the religions. We cannot allow women to marry fellow women or men to do the same. This is not possible here in Kenya, so do not worry. It can happen elsewhere, but not in this country.
Members of the LGBTQ community are facing discrimination, hate, and violence because of who they are and who they love across Africa. In Kenya, much like the rest of Africa, gay sex is a criminal offense, and it is punishable by up to 14 years in jail. And it is not only discriminatory laws that are criminalizing LGBTQ individuals and putting a target on their backs across the continent. In Ghana, security forces raided and shut down the office of an LGBTQ rights group in the capital, Accra, after politicians and religious leaders called for its closure. They later advocated for an anti-gay law to be passed in parliament last year. Many leaders and politicians in the continent often use the Western card to blame the prevalence of the practice in Africa.
This is a very nuanced debate. It's important that people do speak out internationally in support of marginalized communities within Africa. But at the same time, we need to do everything we can to support African LGBTQ+ campaigners so that they can counteract that narrative.
Uganda went further with a new anti-homosexuality bill that was introduced in parliament. It proposes new penalties for same-sex relations. The bill is being sent to the committee for scrutiny before it will be debated in the parliament.
But when you speak to the individual MPs, they will tell you that across the country there is an outcry of homosexual-related issues, recruitment, promotion in schools. Our children are being recruited into this immoral act, and there is a public concern.
But why is there so much dissent in the continent towards the LGBTQ communities? And what are the dangers or repercussions if governments push ahead with criminalizing gay sex or relationships?
When LGBTQ+ people are criminalized, there are very clear dangers in that they can be targeted by the authorities. So that is a real problem. They can face imprisonment, and the laws in Uganda are particularly draconian. But there are also other aspects that we need to bear in mind. So, for example, when LGBTQ plus people are criminalized, they can, for example, become subject to blackmail, or they can be targeted by criminal gangs. So that's a secondary component. And thirdly, it makes it more difficult for LGBTQ plus people to access healthcare.
South Africa is an outlier on the continent, as LGBTQ rights are enshrined in its constitution. Nevertheless, violence against queer people is still rife in the country. Activists say it is high time for African countries to reassess their positions and take action to protect marginalized, victimized and often criminalized LGBTQ communities. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Girl, what did that girl just say, girl? Girl, I don't dance opera.